Good morning. I'm Tailinh Agoyo. Hi, Chizz. I'm so happy you're here. So we are on Rise and Thrive, Indigenous Art, Culture, and Joyful Acts of Resistance on Usula Media. Today I have a really special guest, Chizz, who is an actor and a comedian known for her role in Fry Bread, which is actually on Amazon Prime, and First Nations Comedy Experience on FNX. Welcome, Chizz, from your car. Let's hear what's going on with you this morning. First of all, thank you so much, because I know you are a busy, busy woman. So I'm so happy to see you. What's up? What's happening?
Oh my gosh, life, this whole pandemic has us, and I always mention this, hopefully you know this, I'm ADD, so every time I see something shiny, Mhm. But anywho, yeah, just life with this pandemic, having to have to transition to a whole new world, and the whole dynamics and just structure in the home is completely different now. So I've got a dog, two students, two teenagers at two separate levels, and then my mother who she's situated right now with her cookies and her TV, so we're good there.
You have it all set up. I
Yeah,
always,
yeah.
I see your life, and it's like, it's busy anyway. And then with COVID and all this other stuff going on, like negotiating how to maintain your professional life and then your mom life and then
Yes.
everything else, your responsibilities in the community. There's just so much going on. So I'm so happy you're here that we
Thank
can
you.
have this conversation. And you are joining us if for our audience, because a lot of our audience is actually from Philadelphia. We do have a lot of people
Oh, nice.
listening in from around the world, but if you could introduce yourself and talk about like where you're from, because they may not be familiar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where you're from.
Okay. So I'm Chizz, and Chizz is basically Chizz is short for Chizzy, which is rough or urban lingo, ashy. And then Ba would be the kind of like the warrior in all of us, in each one of us. We all each have our own battles. Uh, so, you weather the storm, and you just get through every storm with a new skill, and you're more sharper than for the next storm. So that Ba, and just get, standing front line for those that you feel that need help with just just the advocacy, and just standing at the front line for them. So whether in my case it's for elders and infants and toddlers families, so that's where that's at. So I'm Chizz. I'm originally from Apajinosla, which is Cove, Arizona, out in Arizona. Currently residing in New Mexico, and I just got off a podcast the other day, and I realized some people don't realize that New Mexico is part of the United States. So,
Oh, right. Yes, I think
yeah,
there's
yeah,
even
yeah.
some postal workers. I've heard some postal workers say like it's international mail when you're sending something to New Mexico.
Yes,
So yeah, it is
it's always
actually part of the
interesting.
United States.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, did I really just hear that? I'm like, oh my gosh,
Oh no, it's a real
that's still
thing.
the yeah, it's still, I
Yeah.
used to, it's part of my bit, and that was only due to the '90s, but I figured we progressed since the '90s, but apparently not. 30 years later, no, we haven't.
No,
So it's kind of
it's
scary.
probably worse now, honestly.
Right, exactly. But
Yeah.
that's okay though, because that's okay. It helps my material as a comedian. It just it just validates and verifies what I'm trying to say.
Right. Right. Well, let's
Yeah.
talk about so have you been, so you do a lot of stand up and you do a lot. I mean, you've done some, you've had visibility online and on networks, but how have you made the shift during COVID to, because I know you've done a lot of community work also. You travel a lot and
Yeah.
you perform live. So how have you changed because of the pandemic?
You, it's I just have to say, it's always just, I'm just always amazed at just the intervention. I call it divine intervention, spiritual tokens, just people that come through at the right time, at the right moment, who've educated me. I mean, I've done some online, and 4 years ago, I actually became a telehealth communicator or a telehealth commuter and communicator, I guess you would say, as far as case management. So that was totally new to me, and that was about 4 years ago. And so since then, I've kind of familiarized myself with just telecommuting by telephone, by webinar, by Skype.
Mm-hmm.
So I somewhat, and for a person who's got ADD, that's very important. I have to have that kinesthetic. I got to have that hands-on, the whole visual, physical, all of that for me to be comfortable. But just doing this whole comedy and outreach and just doing it from my living room or at one point I think I was even in a bathroom. Yeah, I was in one of
Yes.
the I was in a bathroom.
Uh-huh.
I was in my bathroom, yeah, because the dog just wouldn't let up. So my puppy. So I was in the bathroom. But anywho, so I've had people who taught me how to do this whole online. I've been told that I think they would probably be impressed with me because now they would say, "Oh, your background's a car. The last time you looked like you were waiting to in a lineup, because I just had a solid white background
Mm-hmm.
or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a learning experience, just the whole media, but
Yeah.
it's doable. It's the new life, the new
Right.
norm. That's how the next generation, our next voters to come. This is how they communicate, So it makes sense. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
this is their mentality. This is where they're at. So it's an adjustment, but adaptable.
I agree with you. I feel like it has been an adjustment, just trying to get everything, uh, even just on the emotional level, just like you're saying,
Uh,
I like to be in the room with people. I like to feel that energy. I like to, the feedback that you get from people just by their little mannerisms or something are just
yes,
absent during, and then the pauses in between on Zoom or when the internet kind of stalls out and then you're
that,
like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? Yeah, it's really an odd way to connect, but we're figuring it out. I agree with you. Um, I would love to talk about how you maintain your sense of humor throughout all this because I see that you have, and there have been times where I have been just like I had no energy for it, and I see like you. I haven't been on Facebook in a few weeks. Like I've been trying to stay off of it, but in the beginning of I was on it a lot, and I found like you were actually talking about what was going on in the world, like what was going on in Gallup and what you were seeing, and not all positive things, but you also made it feel lighter or manageable in the way that you presented it. And so I think that's really interesting, and it's an incredible skill that you have. Um, is it just you, or are you thinking through these things, or is it just you're just putting it out in the world?
well, thank you for recognizing that. Wow. But
Yeah.
seriously, seriously. Well, okay, so I'm going to go as quickly as I can through just the levels of, oh, master my skills at certain things. Back in the 70s where I went through the assimilation phase, I had some amazing, wonderful Navajo, teachers who were Navajo and teach educational assistants. And back in the 70s, seriously, they were assimilating us and not, it was in a bad sense. They were just trying to keep us from having to go through what they went through
Mm.
as far as boarding school treatment. So in other words, they were trying to give us the buff version of what a lot of them had to experience. So through the assimilation phase, we did a lot of stage work. We actually had programs. We learned the Western way of, or the colonized way of living and so forth. So that mentality is kind of there. So when I'm communicating, I don't know if that makes sense. I'm communicating to an audience. So that's already been there since the 70s,
Okay.
since I was in fourth or fifth grade, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that fear and that intimidation has been gone and it's been, that's been dealt with back in the 70s. So as I've gone through, went through the other phase of the boarding school. So that was where because there wasn't a high school within the area that I lived, and being raised by a single parent who worked, oh my gosh, I mean, amazing, you know, she's a hardworking woman, and still to this day she's a hardworking woman, and having that, you know, but she just didn't have the resources to be able to travel back and forth to a school, which is like an hour away. So that wasn't feasible for her, you know, it wasn't manageable. So by the age of 12, I was pretty much mentally preparing myself. Okay, I'm going to be going to the same school that my brother went to, which is Aztec, which is a boarding school. And back then, one of the most elite schools you could possibly go to, you know, in a very conservative town, conservative mentality, whatever, in a boarding school setting. So there I learned once again to socially, emotionally disconnect and put myself in a whole nother situation, which is this pandemic. You know, I was able to, because I'd already been conditioned. So I'm already in that point of, okay, it's no different from just having me and my section mate, you know, because we didn't, I was like, I got out of an adult correctional facility back in the 90s. People are like, oh my gosh, really? I'm like, yeah. I said, well, the government called them, you know, boarding schools.
Right.
But I did 4 years, you know. So just that lack of engagement, a lack of constant interaction, but having these wonderful brothers and sisters that I became, you know, brothers and sisters to in boarding school, you know, that kind of teaches you a whole different perspective, how to think outside the box, how to survive Monday through Friday, you know, such as this pandemic. A lot of us, in fact, we probably met without realizing it, you know, or subconsciously, we probably all went back into that boarding school phase where we're living in cubes, you know, we're back into that little box. So that was natural. This pandemic made it natural. I'm like, okay, been through that, done that. And so now to my media. And just the comedy. The comedy actually came through with, I found it as a platform to be able to advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves, and in a manner that's not so invasive. That's the key point. And to be able to help others understand you're not the only one going through this. You know, media is all oftentimes about the appearance of what looks perfect, what looks ideal, what looks you know what I'm saying, the facade of what it
Right.
should look like in media. That's what
Right.
it always had been, you know, but I found it as a way to, you know, how do I need to let my, and it I don't even know how to explain it, but I didn't want to invest so much energy in the negativity of what was going on, but at the same time, I want to bring awareness.
Right.
So,
You're very
yeah,
honest. You're very honest and real, and that comes across. So
yeah,
it's like I said before, I think that it's not negativity, it's being real about it, but it's also,
exactly.
you also have an interesting perspective with how you present things.
Yes. And comedy, and I always say, and people always think, you know, comedy, you know, ha-has, okay.
Right.
So maybe I call it no sense Sally, you know, but oftentimes if you think about it historically, those in the elite group, and I call them the elitist, those in the elite group had their jokers, they had their satires, they had their poets, you know, and they were the ones who were able to go into that political circle or within that elite group and be able to bring entertainment. But what they were doing was also observing, you know, in the Navajo way, it's called Hutchisidko. You know, you observe, you take it in, you know, because, and so I see it in that mannerism where I'm able to like see the yin and the yang of being the jokester of a situation, or in that, you know, in that situation. Because and every tradition or every culture, you'll see that there is some type of jokester, some type of comical form, something there, um, that you'll see, and that's where that comes from, I
Right.
think,
That's,
or at least just that's just my opinion or
no, I
my
think you're
observation.
right. I think there's that balance there, and it brings lessons and makes you think. And
Exactly.
on that, a lot of times when you do your comedy, you're speaking in your traditional language, and
Hmm.
you and how do you find the balance of when the audience is a mixed audience and maybe a lot of them don't understand what you're saying? Do you think it translates in the context of what you're saying, or is that not a concern for you? Like, how do you approach it? Do you change what you do for every audience that you perform in front of?
Okay, that's a good question. So right now I'm trying to transition from my predominantly what I managed to master, and I will say I mastered it. Some of my sets where I incorporate Navajo English throughout the whole set, so that hopefully people can get the gist of it and even a little bit more in the details. So I managed to do that. However, I want to venture into new material, which means I have to mentally, because I went through the whole phase of, I hate to say the phase, but literally, kill the Indian, save a man. So my brain functions in that manner, So if I want to outreach to a bigger audience, then I have to switch over and go all English for a little bit, get that mastered down, figure out the formula in that, because everything has a formula, and once I figure that out, then I can transition into incorporating more of my language. So that's always the key there, is to be able to transition it into Navajo, because that's my ultimate goal, only due to the fact that our language is very hard. And like I said, I went through the assimilation phase where you did not speak Navajo in class. The only time that pretty much you had the opportunity to speak Navajo is during recess, Otherwise, you were going to get benched, literally. You were going to sit on the bench with the teacher if you couldn't speak Navajo, and it wasn't a manner of bullying. It was just that equal, like, you just got to know how to communicate in Navajo if you want to play, So with that, I guess, and people always say, well, what about, let's go. And I'm like, well, I really want to just focus on my people, not my people, but predominantly Native American who are Navajo speaking and Navajo listening, because I just feel like there's just, like we just said earlier, people don't even know New Mexico is one of the United States of America. So that would be so off for me to be able to say, okay, well, I'm done with doing Navajo things. Let me go ahead and venture off and do something else. I don't know if I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense, and it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. I mean, you have a lot of work to do there, and
Yes.
You're appreciated. And it would be wrong of anybody to say, well, why don't you, to imply that there's something bigger or better.
Yes.
What you can just be like, no, this is bigger and better. This is what's most impactful for me, and this is where my heart is and what I want to do. Like, yes. any other implication would be kind of Eurocentric or even racist, right? Like, it would to imply that something else beyond where you are is where you're supposed to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, we have.
Did that make down for me?
Okay. Okay. I'm not putting words in your mouth, right?
No. That just means you gave me an answer I couldn't quite answer. You gave me a question I couldn't answer, that means you got something genuine out of me right there. No.
Okay. I'm glad we're on the same page. Okay. We're going to take a break, but I want to explore that more, actually, because I think it's really interesting to talk about that concept. Like, well, where are you going next? And you have to go to LA, or you have to do this, but no, like, and that's how I look at the work that I do too. Let's talk about it when we come back. We're going to take a break. This is Rise and Thrive on Usula Media. We'll be back in a couple minutes with Chizz.
There's a lot of fear in coming back to school. I wasn't sure if I could do it. I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but the teachers, the counselors, they help you. One of the teachers was Miss Araceli. Miss Araceli, she gave me direction. Every single time I had a question, she'll put down whatever she's doing and she'll come over and she'll sit there with you until you get it.
Thank you, Miss Araceli. I know you make a difference in people's lives because of the person and teacher you are. I wanted to be here because I wanted to thank you for helping me get a beautiful gift.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work. Getting your high school diploma, it is a life-changing experience. It really is.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Sí, tenía miedo. No sabía si iba a poder hacerlo.
Encuentra clases gratis para adultos cerca de ti en completatudiploma.org.
And we're back on Rise and Thrive. This is Tailin Agoyo, and I'm here with Chizz, who's in her car in New Mexico. She's hiding. I've done many a radio show in the car, and I've done many work meetings in the bathroom, like you mentioned before.
Yes.
It's what you have to do as a parent. It's just the reality, especially during this time. So before we left last segment, we were talking about maintaining a focus and making sure that our community is being cared for, or that our focus is there, and that it's not necessarily what like the greater colonized settler society has this intention for you, and this mindset that we're all kind of raised with, like you have to achieve a certain amount of financial success, and you know, I was saying, even with We Are the Seeds organizationally, people are always like, well, what's your revenue? What's your income? And that's how they'll decide whether or not we're successful.
Exactly.
Whereas to me, if we impact people and people can feed their families, or if someone gets a platform to talk about an important issue, then to me, that's success, right? I don't measure my success by financial wealth or by a white person recognizing me and put me up, you know, that's not how I measure my success. So you were kind of saying the same thing. So I wanted to explore that a little more, because I don't often talk to people who have that perspective.
Yeah. The one thing I always live by is, and that's just living as a, you know, as a single parent, and just thinking, man, you know, I'm screwed. My credit's screwed. I went to college thinking a loan was going to be important. It got to a point where, as a single parent, yes, I may have made some irresponsible decisions, and which resulted in being a single parent, but I still tried to manage, and the financial decisions weren't wisely made or thoroughly thought out. And so the result of it is my credit sucks. So that's where my status is, and it's been, but I managed to where I'm like, you know what, I'm fine with that, because I've managed to meet people. I've managed in an unconditional manner that have gotten me places, have gotten, to just the here and now, who is the one who wrote about the here and now? I can't even one of the I want to say it's Myers, but I don't remember if it's Myers or not. Anyway, the here and now, that whole mentality. And that's where I really started again to understand, live in the here and now, live in the here and now. No credit should determine your tomorrow. I always say, I was born without a penny to my name, will leave this earth without a penny to me, and the funny thing is, my nickname that my brother gave me is Penny. So I find that funny. I'm like, what?
It's
okay.
It doesn't mean, yeah, right.
But
It doesn't have a value for you.
Status and credentials are, if I needed to write a proposal, I know that that's important. So when I think of developing programs later on, or, as far as expanding resources on the Navajo Reservation, I do see the importance of having to have stats, having those credentials.
Sure.
But as far as on a personal level, on a personal growth for comedy and being out there in community, no, it isn't. doesn't mean anything. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. It didn't,
It's not your focus.
it's not another log to fire. It's what the community brings together, the energy. Yeah.
It's repeat that again. So you're saying it's like what the community, I missed it because of the technology.
Oh, I was just saying it's what the community brings to the fire.
Right.
I feel like credentials and money it's not another log to the fire.
Right. Right. And I think that's
Yeah.
so healthy because those.
So me going past, it's so expensive. It doesn't make any sense to me.
What's
When you already
expensive?
have an audience here, you haven't even
Right.
if my neighbors don't know who I am, then I haven't done my job completely in the community.
That's incredible. I love it. I think.
Am I lagging?
A little bit. Am I lagging? Yes.
Just a little bit.
You can't hear me either. Okay.
I
Great.
know, right? That should be our shirt. Are you lagging?
Are you lagging? I'm lagging.
Lagging.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, catch up. Yeah, I agree. I think that if you're
lag or lag. No, just kidding.
Oh my goodness. So if for the people who can't see us, or if you're just listening in and not watching, we're having a bit of a technology situation going on. But how is are you on you're not on Wi-Fi, you're on your phone?
Yeah, I made a mistake of moving away from my house too far out. I'm not close to my internet to catch my Wi-Fi, but I'm catching somebody's Wi-Fi here.
To say thank you to whoever that is. You should have pulled into the McDonald's parking lot.
Hey, your neighbor's password. I think that's your internet.
That is so funny. So I want to talk about the Fry Bread TV show because that was so much fun. I mean, and to talk about reaching, I think it would be fun for any kind of audience, even an audience who's not familiar with Native culture. But it really did have all those little hidden jokes and even the way you, first of all, you were great, by the way, but just the way you acted in it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you had all the subtleties, and then you were like, I don't know how to explain it, but you just had these subtleties with your reactions. And you were perfect for the film. So talk about how you came to be a part of it, and like, it's on Amazon Prime. So has it gotten the play that you expected it to, or do you want more people to see it?
Most definitely would want more people to see it. Number one, to just become aware that there are Native American artists out there. There's no longer that need for a Navajo to play a Lakota grandma in a Cowboys and Indians movie. Mm-hmm. Like back in the 70s.
Right.
There are
or
Native Americans.
2000s.
Of course, I definitely encourage more people to watch. And the humor is definitely different. If you're trying to, I always been told that comedy is very different from other comedies, and it is. But those of us who have figured out that there is a formula to it, we try to stay within that comedy formula with our little details to it. So if you're one who thinks poetry, think of Fry Bread as Phoenix. It brings new life out of the fire. It returns. And then there are those of us act out all seen as to the importance, this Fry Bread, it's Phoenix that's giving rise to everybody and giving life to everybody. And when you think about it, it's just like, wow, okay. But that was actually, I think that was actually my official experience, my very first experience working under a director who has director producer Hamilton, who has had his movies theaters, you know. So under his direction, that one scene there that I played was a 2-day process. I couldn't believe, and I had ADD, like I say, so it was very hard. So I'm glad you felt and saw that I completed that role, because I was literally struggling on the inside because it was
Wow.
so difficult to do. Repetition is very hard for me to do, because sometimes if it's something I can't identify with, if it's something very unfamiliar with, I don't have the backstory to it. Of course, I had the script prior to, but because it's fictional, it was really hard for me to fall into the roles. So the director did an amazing job as to how to get that characteristic out at the times that he needed me to do or play a role or whatever. So oh my gosh, if you're planning on going to acting in the acting world, all I can tell you right now, just look up, movie scripts on the internet and memorize it and just act it out, be loud, goofy, memorize your lines. See, now I think that day my brain is getting choppy. So I feel like I'm like line. So it was very interesting, but it was fun.
Yeah, it was interesting. Hamilton, I don't know Hamilton, but the actors, there were a lot of actors that I figured there were some that seemed like they had acting experience, and there were some that seemed like they were new, but they were excellent. And so that's to me a sign of a really good director, an actor's director who
Yes.
knows how to speak to the actors and get what the director wants out of them, is really quite a talent. Because I've worked with a lot of directors that just didn't know how to do that, and then would just get angry at you, and you'd like communicate, like, I'm not sure what you want. you need to tell me what you're talking about, right? So that was really clear, and so that's so great that you had a good first experience with a good director in that way. And then First Nations comedy experience, what was that like?
Okay. So First Nations comedy, that was a whole nother experience, because I had to travel even further out. Number one, as a single parent, I rounded up my kids and my mom on us. Do you guys want to go to California? So we go zooming down there, check out California, go to the beach, whatever. And all of this is important because the one thing you're doing as a comedian, or even especially for a stand-up comedy bit like that is going to be televised, the one thing you're really doing prior to is finding that level of creativity, finding that level of freedom to escape your reality, to be able to tap into your creative senses. And so because ADD, when I go somewhere unfamiliar, I'm instantly going to go into condition mode. It's hard for me to find that. So cruised around, traveled, whatever. And then so when I got to the set and actually on stage, I will say FX has did very well with their editing, because I was sweating beads literally at one point in that. And so what they put together, I was very happy, because they did very good with getting the gist of what I was trying to say. Even though they'd never met me, they knew nothing about Navajo comedy and what I've been doing, but yet they managed to get the important pieces for me to be able to say, hey, that's a set I want to follow, that I'm trying to transition into. So that's when I knew, back to your question, when you do Navajo and English, that's when I knew I mastered that skill. If somebody, a producer California, can put that all together,
Yes.
So it was fun.
That's really cool. Really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have a question going back to when you started comedy. I heard that you said something like you were talking to Ernie, James and Ernie, and he said, like, do research, and then he invited you, and you thought it was like a meeting, that you were just going to like meet some folks, and all of a sudden you were performing for 300 people. And there are two things to that I was just really impressed that when community lifts community, I'm really impressed by that, and I don't think it happens often enough. And especially when a man in our community lifts a woman in our community, I find to be exceptionally rare and beautiful. So that's one thing. And then I just want to know, like, what you were thinking.
Okay, that's even a funny story because number one, I had a wild hair up my butt. And as my sister says, and now it tells me, when you get a wild hair up your butt, you cut it, sister. That's just the Navajo way. But I didn't do that. Not me. I'm going to research because I love research. My major is sociology and psychology. So, of course, the sociology in me is all research. Okay, let's figure this out, So I had contacted Ernest, like you said, and he's an amazing mentor, Ernest Associate III. I always tell him, if I could get a certificate from your tech or your vocational school for what I've done here, I said, I want your signature because this work that you see here, I said, has been your mentorship. But yes, so when I had showed up, had happened was I honestly literally thought I was just going to be, sharing my material, whatever. And no, they threw me out to the dogs. And I will tell you, that set was the hardest ever. It was scary because number one, Navajo women smile, this is us,
Yeah.
and we're happy.
Yeah.
This is
You're
us.
very happy right now.
We're excited. This is us, way more, this is us. And literally that's what I had to experience because, Navajo women in general, and then they see Navajo women trying to be comical on stage. Yeah.
So you didn't get the visual cues back. You didn't get any kind of good feedback visually.
I probably got more like, oh my gosh, you just wasted our time. Can you hurry up and get off the stage so we can watch who we're here to see, listen to,
Yeah.
that whole, I'm like, okay.
But then when you were done, did you get good feedback? Was it different than how you felt?
I will say James Bigotti, Pax Hardy, Ernest David Sosi III truly had, at that moment in time, had really reset foundation of exactly what you said. As to with among Navajo, sometimes sometimes the level of encouragement or the encouragement between male and female is lacks a lot. There's a lot of it looking. Sometimes always more barrier. That's the women's role, that the men's role, and that it. But those three gentlemen at that time really made it comfortable for me and said, if you feel this is your time, then there's the stage. And then right after was, you did good. Just work on it more, more. If you're serious about this, it'll happen again. So they really gave me that guidance, that verbal cue to say, not bad, wasn't the greatest because the reaction wasn't quite there.
It was your first time.
It's an opportunity. We gave it to you. You took it. So, hey, if you want to keep going at it,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we'll have more with Chizz. This is Rise and Thrive on Usula Media.
There's a
They
lot
call
of
me
fear in
Maxie,
coming back to
but
school.
I prefer tripod.
I wasn't sure if I
was
could
your
do it.
above average
I'm a
four-legged
40-year-old man
homie,
that walked
and then
in there
wham
to get his
bam
high school
minivan.
diploma.
Some
It was
people
very
pity
hard
me.
for me, but
Well,
the
that's
teachers,
lame.
the counselors,
I still
they
run,
help you.
fetch, and
One
swim.
of the teachers was
And the
Miss
ladies
Araceli.
love me.
Miss
I'm the
Araceli,
ultimate
she gave me
wingman.
direction.
Just
Every
don't
single
ask
time I
me
had a
to high
question,
five.
she'll put down whatever she's doing and she'll come over and she'll sit there with you until you get it.
Thank you, Miss Araceli. I know you make a difference in people's lives because of the person and teacher you are. I I wanted to be here because I wanted to thank you for helping me get a beautiful gift.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work. Getting your high school diploma, it is a life-changing experience. It really is.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
And we're back. This is Tailin Agoyo. I'm with Chizz on Rise and Thrive on Usula Media. Chizz just told me a story that needs to be retold. We were talking about challenges, and we were talking about we're having a little bit of technology issue right now. And we're like, but we've been through worse. We know how to deal with pretty much anything that's thrown at us. And Chizz had a story about sharing a generator.
Yes, I had to share a generator with the snow cone. There's a snow cone makers to be able to use the accident was set a water on this event.
So I think Chizz
would at a casino.
Oh, it was at a casino. So
I still did it.
You're cutting out a little bit, so I'm going to repeat that. She said that she was at a casino performing and had to share a generator with a snow cone maker. And then I asked if she was able to get a snow cone after, but no love there. No love. No. All right. So this is our last segment. So I just wanted to talk about what your plans are for the future. And I know that there's so much that's unpredictable, but like in terms of your personal goals, what do you see for yourself and your work?
Okay, so that's a very good one because that's where I'm at right now. Literally speaking, as to where I'm at in my path. So one is maintain my job for my children because that's my number one priority. I've got 2 teenagers during a pandemic. I've got my mother. So a lot of times people will say, well, where you, kind of like what we said, where you going to go out there, get out there? Now's the time. I'm like, you know what? If I'm not standing front line to protect my own children and my own family, then what have I really done for my own children and my own family? These are scary times. The reality of it is, MIW is very serious in my world. And so I'm to protect, I'm the security at home. That's my priority. Now, when they get a little bit older, they're starting to venture off on their own. They become adults, which I have a successful adult 20-year-old now, so I'm very happy. So he's mentoring for his brother and sister. So once they get that age, then maybe I'll begin to venture off, out of state in other states. Hopefully, I'm still doing okay then with my comedy. But for now, really trying to master this whole online webinar, Skype, Zoom, all of that, that whole comedy set there, because it's all new and I'm all about learning something new. So getting that down. And I guess, but mainly how this all started, Chizz was really, like I said, is a platform to advocate for those who are in need. The biggest thing that we need on the Navajo reservation are resources. And that's the big thing. So if I'm visually not seeing the resources coming about in the next 4 or 5 years, or even within the next 2 years, as fast as media works, then I feel like a near 50-year-old, I have not done my job as to reach out and advocating for community members. So until I do all that, then hopefully one day I'll be on a huge stage
Yeah.
and going big time, and being able to bring that language still
Right.
to that stage off of the Navajo reservation, because the Wash Your Nuts video seems to be doing very well with the general
The,
public.
the what?
So,
I missed what you
the
said.
Wash Your Nuts video that was intended for only my 10 followers at the time. And now it's gone. I think
I've
I don't
missed.
even
I'm writing
remember. It's
this
huge.
down because I'm going on
I see the look on your
YouTube
face,
right
but you have to
right
watch video
after this.
because what's that?
We're having a lag. I'm going on YouTube right after this to check out this video. So, okay.
Yeah. Oh, you'll find it. And people, that's the funny thing about our language and comedy is people hear words and they you have to watch the video to realize
Right.
it's nothing derogatory.
Right.
However, it's the person's responsibility as what they heard.
Yes.
Because the whole public service announcement about that is I start off with it's pinion season. There's cheese season.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who love to pick pinions, pinion nuts. Some of you may not be pinion nut preferred. Maybe you're more of a walnut type of person. Maybe you like almonds, So then I say, the environmental health communicated with me that they would like for me to do a public service announcement because the pinion season is here and a lot of people are out there picking yams. So could you do a PSA? I do this whole PSA in Navajo and at the very end. So anyway, you got to watch it. But I saw your mouth dropping like, oh, which is typically the reaction. But then I'm like, no,
it's about pinions.
That might have been a Freudian slip of the mind, but I did it.
It's great. It's great. I'm excited to see it. That's one thing I miss living there is not having pinions, Anyway, so where can people,
right.
There have been a lot of, COVID's had a really deep impact on your community. Where can people donate money or find out where they can help and support?
Support the COVID
action in your community.
A lot of it, I know there's the water is like, oh gosh, there's so many, and I just did in fact an aunt where we were going raising money for that purpose. I can't even think of it right now. But the two groups that have bringing water sources or water containers or hand washing stations to the reservation.
Right, yes.
Have been very actively involved. And I think right now, as winter's starting to come about, I think we're going to start to see more issues with just the basic needs of, socks, gloves, that type of those resources, or even firewood for a lot of families that I do case management with, medical case management. I am shocked, even being as a Navajo and a Native and working on the reservation, I'd say about 70% of those who I work with still don't have running water. Mm-hmm. Don't have electricity, may have a solar system or a generator system. And primarily their primary source of heat is a wood burn stove. And it's 2020 and that's mm-hmm. still the situation to this day. So time you see services needed for wood burning wood burning stove or water containers or water sources, or anybody out there even knows how to reach out for solar system panels or replacing solar system. That's the other thing, because people have some tribe members have gotten the solar system, but after about so many years, the solar system no longer works. So replacing it or having somebody fix that is a whole nother situation. So they're back to square one without electricity, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lot of challenge over the past few months. I really appreciate you
resources.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing about that and about your other work that you do and how it works with your comedy. Also, like you've done a really interesting job of bringing all of it together to make sure that it's creating a positive impact. And I have to tell you that I always, we don't see, I mean, I think we've met once, right? We met once in like 2000
dinner by
yes, yes, with
Sanoa.
Shirley. Yeah, that
over
was
at
when
the
we
Maria in
met.
Farmington.
That was a really nice day.
You had your little one with you.
Did I? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, your little one.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I just don't remember, but I always had someone on me.
Right.
Yeah, but social media is tough, but one of the nice things is being able to keep up with people that you just, or grow friendships with people that you wouldn't necessarily because of distance or region. So it's been really nice to be able to follow you and the work that you're doing. And you're honestly really an inspiration because for me, I feel there have been times where I've felt really down and like struggling. And then your honesty and your integrity and just living your life in the way that you do as a mother and as a professional person always was something that it just, if I saw you pop up throughout the day and you say something, that you were dealing with, it made me feel okay. And so I just want to thank you for that. I don't know if you know that you've had that effect on people.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Plus you're hilarious.
In all honesty, and that's really my intent. When I work with my, only reason why I call them my elders, because not everybody's not on that level of communication, right, or understanding. Those who consider, I call them my wiser brothers and sisters, though the society says, elders, or they'll call them, basically elders. I always address, and I always tell them, Shade or Shanai, my old brother, my older sister. And I always say, and I explain to them in Navajo, the reason why I address you that way is because I call you my mother or my grandmother, my father or my grandfather, because the way we relate and communicate with each other, then I feel like I've just given you a bigger responsibility. But if I call you my brother or sister, then I feel like we're on the same page. We're equal as to we're dealing with currently. And so you, I would call my little sister. And I feel like when I'm communicating with you by media, I'm just trying to tell you, little sister, you're not the only one going through it. You're not the only one who has gone through it. A lot of us have gone through it. I'm going to tell you right now, every time you go through another storm or another storm is coming, breathe a deep breath. Prepare yourself, because the last storm you went probably gives so many tools and skills that you're not going to wear of people in your life, whether it's good or bad, but they pushed you on to sharpen another tool for you to be able to get through the storm or weather the storm or get to the next level. So that's really what I'm trying to say. So I'm happy to hear that that you feel something from it, because I think that's what it is. That's just to tell you that, you are important. You're somebody in my world. I'm just someone who likes to be haha, that I want to be able to see. And the thing is just, I don't want your brain to play tricks on you. That's what I tell kids. Your brain will play tricks on you
Mm-hmm.
and making you believe that you're inferior to some situations,
Mm-hmm.
or you don't know any better, or you know nothing. And I'm here to say, no, that's not true. Don't let your brain tricks on you. If there's a good opportunity there, go for it, do it, get done, move forward. Just, and I see you as, you inspire me, you
Thank
motivate
you.
me. I always see all the things you do, and I'm like, she's way heck over there 1 minute, and then deal with her whole landlord issues and
Yeah. Yeah.
housing
Right?
situation. See, we follow you, I follow you, and the next you're just huge project. Multiculturalism, even with our Native Americans and our foreigners, and you do this whole thing, and you tell you're so passionate and focused. In that moment, you give your all, 100%, and then you fly home again, and then you're back to being a mom.
Yep.
So you do
Yeah.
the same thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
always
thank you.
motivated and inspired to see that, because I want my daughter to have you as her inspiration. And that's the true intent of the circle, keeping that
Yes.
going, that sisterhood going.
Yes. Thank you, Chizba. Thank you. And thank you for coming on the show today and taking time out of your busy schedule. I really appreciate it. I had a great time chatting with you. So thanks for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This is Rise and Thrive, Indigenous Art, Culture, and Joyful Acts of Resistance on USLA Media. We'll see you next Thursday. Thank you.